They say there's nothing lonelier than patrolling empty corridors under harsh fluorescent lights. But for Marcus, it was just another shift as a late-night security guard at the Holloway Mall. Then he noticed her, a woman standing at the far edge of the deserted parking lot, barely visible under flickering streetlights. Tonight, you'll hear his story, and it might make you question the safety of even the emptiest of places. Now tell us in the comment, where are you watching from? Marcus first saw her during his usual rounds, just before midnight. The night was cold, the sky a blanket of inky blackness, punctuated by the hum of distant traffic. Holloway Mall stood silent, the sort of stillness that makes you notice every footstep and every echo in your own breath. He wheeled his flashlight across rows of empty cars, scanning for anything out of place, potential intruders, stray animals, or cars left behind after hours. But his beam caught something else that night, a woman at the far edge of the asphalt, her silhouette barely illuminated by the glow of a dying lamppost. She was standing unnaturally still. She wore a pale dress, too light for such a chilly evening. Her posture was rigid, arms hanging limply by her sides as though waiting for something or someone to come closer. Marcus paused, uncertain whether to approach. He considered radioing it in, but a strange feeling told him to wait. And so he watched her for nearly a full minute, half expecting her to move or wave. But she remained perfectly motionless, as if time had frozen around her. Eventually, he blinked, and when he looked back, she was gone. If you saw someone standing motionless in the dark, would you confront them or assume it was just your mind playing tricks? In the days that followed, Marcus tried to convince himself that fatigue had played a trick on him, yet each new shift brought another subtle, haunting sign. A footprint in the dust outside a locked entrance, the echo of an almost human whisper in an empty corridor. Still, nothing prepared him for the night he saw her again. This time, closer. It was 2 a.m., and the temperature had dipped even further. A gust of wind rattled the outdoor trash cans, sending shivers through the chain-link fence behind the mall. That's when Marcus spotted her near a far-off lamppost, the same rigid posture, the same pale dress. This time her face was angled ever so slightly in his direction. No blinking, no shifting of weight, just a statue carved in a wide-eyed stare. Except now, under the flickering lamp, Marcus realized her smile was unnaturally broad, stretching the boundaries of what a human mouth should do. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief, but she stayed there, locked in that eerie grin. Summoning his courage, he took a step forward. He got as far as calling out, "Ma'am, do you need help?" But his voice seemed to vanish into the wind. She didn't respond. Instead, the light overhead buzzed, casting sparks, and by the time his vision cleared, she was gone again, leaving only an unsettling imprint on his mind. Would you keep investigating, or report it immediately to someone else for fear it could be something dangerous? Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the mall's barren halls were watching him with keen, invisible eyes. Over the next week, he found himself peering over his shoulder more often. Faint noises, soft tapping, distant rustling kept him on edge. Even the mannequins in store windows seemed more lifelike at night, their plastic forms briefly resembling her silhouette whenever he passed. His supervisor was dismissive when Marcus mentioned it. "You're stressed," they said, offering an extra coffee break rather than a solution. So Marcus continued his rounds alone, the solitary guardian of polished floors and neon signs that buzzed with half-hearted life in the late hours. Outside, the parking lot stretched like a sea of asphalt under flickering lamps. A few nights later, Marcus thought he glimpsed her again, this time in a reflection. While unlocking a side entrance door, the glass panels momentarily revealed her figure in the distance, standing under the same failing lamp. He spun around, adrenaline spiking, but the spot was empty. Confusion and dread waged war inside his head. Was she even real, or had his own paranoia conjured her from shadows? Refusing to give in to fear, Marcus devised a plan. He'd leave the security cameras rolling after hours, pointed toward the parking lot where he'd last seen her. Determined for answers, he wanted undeniable proof. Either the woman existed, or he was losing his grasp on reality. Marcus spent the next few nights meticulously reviewing the surveillance tapes. The footage was often grainy, the nighttime shadows blending into one another. Yet, around 3:15 a.m., he noticed an odd flicker near the outer edge of the frame, right where the lamppost stood. The movement was fleeting, more of a distortion than a person. Frustrated but not deterred, he adjusted the camera's angle the following night for a clearer view. That's when he finally caught a glimpse. At precisely 2:59 a.m., the shape of a woman emerged at the edge of the lot. Her figure was faint at first, almost an outline against the distant glow, but it became unmistakable when she lifted her head. Even through the poor resolution, Marcus could see her grin, wide enough to make him recoil from the monitor. There she stood, perfectly still, for nearly 6 minutes before vanishing into thin air. No footsteps, no final wave, just gone. Shaken, Marcus printed a screenshot. It was blurry, but the unnatural curvature of her smile was evident. He tried to show the image to a coworker, but they laughed it off as a glitch. Disbelief turned to unease that gnawed at him. If nobody else believed in her presence, would that make him a target? Or worse, had something chosen him specifically? That night, he walked the parking lot with a growing dread, every echo of his own footsteps sending pulses of anxiety through his veins. Things escalated the following evening. Marcus was patrolling the eastern corridor, where neon signs cast shifting reflections on the polished floor. A sudden jolt of the overhead lights flickering made him pause. As he stared at the glass entrance doors, he saw her, standing directly outside, hands pressed against the glass. Her grin seemed even wider now, stretching almost ear to ear, her eyes fixed straight at him with an intensity that felt like a drill boring into his mind. He froze, heart hammering. This time he forced himself to move. Hand trembling, he reached for his radio. But before he could speak, the lights surged back on. In that split second of brightness, her figure vanished, leaving behind only 2 faint handprints smudged on the door. Shaken to his core, Marcus retreated to the control room, locking every door behind him. He scoured the cameras again. Nothing. That was when a slow scratching sound echoed from somewhere above the monitors, like nails dragging across metal. He stood, scanning the ceiling for any sign of intrusion. Nothing. But the sound persisted, circling the room as if something prowled outside the thin walls. He couldn't ignore it any longer. Something wanted his attention. Mustering courage, he unlocked the control room door, stepping out into the dim corridor. That's when he heard a faint giggle, high-pitched and unsettling, drifting from the direction of the parking lot entrance. He raced through the corridors toward the front doors, determined to confront her, or at least finally understand what was happening. The clack of his shoes reverberated under the fluorescent lights, and with each stride, the giggling grew louder, twisting into an unnatural cackle. By the time he reached the glass doors, the laughter abruptly stopped, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Outside, the night was still, the wind suspended as though the world held its breath. Then he saw her. She was closer than ever, practically pressed against the glass. The grin on her face was so wide it looked physically impossible. Her lips curled back to reveal too many teeth. Her eyes locked onto his, unblinking. For a moment, everything else vanished. No hum of electricity, no distant traffic, just that terrible grin. Marcus swung the door open, intending to shout, but his voice failed him. She stood motionless, the corners of her mouth arcing upward. A single step forward brought him nose to nose with this apparition. Her breath was cold, unnaturally so, like stepping into a freezer. He shone his flashlight at her face, expecting her to recoil, but she only smiled wider, eyes reflecting nothing but emptiness. A sudden wave of dizziness overcame him, forcing him to stumble back. By the time his vision refocused, she was gone, leaving no trace but the chilling echo of her laugh. The next morning, Marcus resigned from his post, vowing never to return. Yet even as he walked away from Holloway Mall, he felt the lingering sensation of a pair of eyes watching him, a silent grin following him from the edges of every darkened street. Thank you for joining us on this midnight watch. Sometimes what appears just at the edge of our vision may be more real and more terrifying than we care to admit. How would you handle confronting a figure that defies explanation? Let us know your theories down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this tale, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Dare to listen for more unsettling journeys into the unknown. After all, in the world of late-night shadows, it only takes one silent observer to make us question what's real. They say a child's gaze sees what grown-ups cannot or refuse to acknowledge. 7-year-old Penny lives in a cozy house with her mother Lucy, who works tirelessly to keep their little world spinning. But recently, Penny's eyes have been fixed on a shape, a tall, twisted shadow that clings to Lucy's every move. At first, Lucy laughs it off as a child's overactive imagination, yet the laughter fades when the shadow begins to speak, its cold whisper needling at Lucy's deepest secret. You're not her real mother, are you? Welcome to a household perched on the brink of an unthinkable truth. Every morning starts the same. Lucy stands by the kitchen counter, flipping pancakes while Penny chatters about her dreams. One day, Penny's usually bright demeanor dulls, and she refuses breakfast. Eyes downcast, she mumbles, "Mommy, there's a shadow in your room." Lucy gives a reassuring smile, ruffling Penny's hair. "Probably just the sunlight playing tricks," she says. But Penny insists it's bigger than normal, darker too. Lucy has plenty on her plate, a demanding job, rent overdue, and the challenge of raising Penny alone after her husband's passing. As the mother of a curious child, Lucy is used to imaginative tales. Still, something about Penny's trembling voice plants a seed of unease. Hoping to calm her, Lucy unlocks her phone, showing a funny cat video. Penny manages a half-hearted smile, but her eyes keep darting to the hallway, as if she expects the shadow to emerge at any moment. When Lucy tucks Penny into bed that night, the little girl's voice quivers with a final plea. "I saw it following you today too. Promise you'll watch out." Lucy presses a gentle kiss to her forehead, telling herself that children outgrow such fears. Yet her motherly instincts buzz with an alert she can't dismiss. If your child warned of a shadow following you, would you brush it off as make-believe or investigate their claims more seriously? The next morning, Lucy notices a small but disturbing detail. The bathroom mirror is smudged as if fingers have been pressed against it. She assumes it's Penny playing around, or maybe she herself did it absent-mindedly. Yet as she wipes the glass clean, a chill settles over her. The faint outline of a hand, far larger than hers, briefly remains before vanishing under the cloth. Work that day proves nearly impossible. Lucy can't shake Penny's warning or the smudge on the mirror. She tries to focus on spreadsheets, but glimpses something at the corner of her vision, a flicker of darkness that evaporates when she turns. Rationally, she blames stress, the combination of single parenting and long hours in the office. Still, anxiety burrows deeper with every passing hour. That evening, Lucy returns home to find Penny quietly coloring at the kitchen table. No laughter, no playful mischief, just subdued silence. In the corner stands a tall lamp, casting shadows on the wall. An irrational dread creeps up Lucy's spine as she observes that the lamp's shadow looks strange. The shape is too long, almost humanoid. She blinks, and it reverts to normal. Plopping down beside Penny, Lucy tries to muster a warm smile. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Penny just shrugs, eyes flicking to the corner where the lamp stands. She doesn't say a word, but Lucy understands. The shadow might still be here, waiting. Several nights later, Lucy awakens to a soft murmur echoing through the hallway. She can't decipher the words, but the tone is insistent, almost coaxing. Dismissing it as a leaky pipe, she steps out of bed and flicks on the hallway light, only to find Penny standing there, hugging a teddy bear. The little girl's face is ashen. "It's talking to you, Mommy," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucy's heart thunders in her chest. Penny points to the far wall where only Lucy's shadow should be, cast by the overhead bulb, except the outline flickers unnaturally, almost separate from her actual form. Cold adrenaline floods Lucy's veins. She tries to brush it off, joking that the house is old and making odd noises, but she can't deny the visible movement of that shadow, swaying when she's standing completely still. In a trembling voice, Penny repeats the eerie message. "You're not her real mother, are you?" Lucy stiffens. She and her husband had adopted Penny at birth, a secret only they and the agency knew. She's never told Penny, nor had any reason to suspect the child would guess. So how could this thing know? Shaken to her core, Lucy scoops Penny into her arms and rushes them back to the bedroom. She locks the door, as though a simple bolt could hold back a whisper seething with unspeakable malice. Penny's health deteriorates over the following days. She sleeps fitfully, complains of nightmares featuring a tall figure that stands behind Lucy, whispering vile secrets. At school, her teacher sends a note home expressing concern about Penny's withdrawn behavior and dark circles under her eyes. Lucy, too, is unraveling. She checks and rechecks every door and window, triple locking them at night. Yet each evening, around midnight, the faint hiss returns, drifting through the halls. She tries using headphones to drown out the whispers, but the uneasy sense of another presence won't leave. She questions her sanity. Could this all be stress manifesting into illusions? But it's impossible to ignore Penny's matching terror. One rainy afternoon, Lucy musters courage to sit Penny down. "Sweetheart, about this shadow, can you tell me what it looks like?" The little girl draws in a shaky breath. "It's like smoke, but it has horns." Lucy's heart drops. "And it stands by you, Mommy," Penny adds. "It keeps saying it wants to show you the truth." Lucy's mind flashes to the adoption papers locked in her bedroom drawer. Could a malevolent force sense that Lucy wasn't Penny's biological mother? The thought sends chills racing over her skin. She finds her reflection in a nearby mirror, half expecting to see that monstrous silhouette peering over her shoulder. Instead, she only sees her own haunted eyes, framed by mounting dread. Desperate, Lucy contacts a family counselor under the pretense of Penny experiencing night terrors. The counselor suggests relaxation techniques and child-friendly mindfulness, urging Lucy to remain patient. Yet the professional advice feels inadequate when stacked against demonic whispers in the night. Late one evening, Lucy's phone rings. It's an unknown number. The voice on the line is low, raspy, almost inhuman, echoing a single phrase before the call drops. "You can't hide forever." Panicked, Lucy tries to call back, but there's no answer, no record of the call in her log. Her stomach twists. The shadow's power extends beyond the house, forcing its way into daily life. Unable to stand the dread any longer, Lucy decides to confront whatever has attached itself to her. Armed with every ounce of maternal protectiveness, she pours salt along the windowsills and doorways, a half-remembered superstition from her grandmother. She places a small crucifix above the front entrance. She doesn't believe in exorcisms or the occult, yet each act offers a thread of hope. When Penny tentatively peeks from her bedroom, Lucy kneels, offering a comforting hug. "We're going to be okay," she whispers. Penny nods, though fear glimmers in her eyes. The question remains: if the shadow is truly the devil's presence, can a mother's love shield her child from something that claims Lucy's bond with Penny isn't real? At the stroke of midnight, Lucy awakens to Penny's screams. Racing down the hallway, she stops short at a horrifying sight. A swirling mass of darkness hovers near Penny's bedroom door, flickering like black fire. Within it, Lucy discerns the faint outline of twisted horns, luminous eyes brimming with malice. The shape extends a shadowy limb toward Penny, who cowers against the wall. The shape's voice resonates like distant thunder. "She is not yours," it intones, each word stabbing at Lucy's heart. A hot flash of rage flares within her. How dare this thing challenge her love for Penny? Refusing to surrender, Lucy steps forward, placing herself between Penny and the entity. The temperature plummets, and an invisible pressure tightens around her, constricting her breath. In a trembling voice, Lucy declares, "She is my daughter. I love her. You have no power over us." The shadow's eyes narrow, flickering with some ancient fury. Yet Lucy stands firm, arms spread protectively. A sudden glow flares behind Lucy. She realizes Penny is clutching the small crucifix from the front door, holding it high. For an instant, the darkness recoils as though burned. The monstrous figure twists in agony, then shreds into streaks of black vapor. Its final hiss snakes through the air. This isn't over. Panting, Lucy kneels to hold Penny, who sobs into her shoulder. Though the devil's shadow may linger, Lucy knows they have won this battle. The unbreakable bond between mother and daughter burns bright, lighting the path forward against whatever darkness dares question it. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey into a mother's fierce devotion. If a shadowy force claimed you weren't truly bound to a loved one, would you confront it head-on, or let your fear take hold? Share your thoughts below. And if Lucy's battle against a devilish whisper left you gripping your seat, remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned to dare to listen for more stories that challenge the shadows we carry. After all, the strongest weapon against darkness is the love we refuse to relinquish, no matter what horrors come knocking. We've all seen them. Those chain emails that promise a lifetime of good luck if you forward them, or doom if you don't. Most of us ignore them with a laugh, dismissing them as harmless relics of internet folklore. But what if one such email carried a curse that wouldn't be denied? Meet Gavin, a practical joker who scoffs at the very idea of digital superstition. One night, he casually deletes a chain email warning dire consequences for non-compliance. By the time he realizes his mistake, it's too late to click forward. Gavin often spent his evenings scanning his spam folder for a good laugh. Conspiracy theories, scam inheritance offers. It was all comedic fodder in his eyes. So when he stumbled upon a grim chain email titled "Forward or Suffer," he barely blinked. It contained a haunting message about a restless spirit that demanded its story be shared. A single line in bold print read, "Failure to comply unleashes the spirit's wrath." Rolling his eyes, Gavin let out a chuckle. "Who believes this nonsense anymore?" he scoffed, hitting the delete key. He closed his laptop for the night, never giving the email a second thought. Sure, the wording was intense, but he figured it was just another spam tactic. The next day dawned as usual, bright and unremarkable. Gavin shrugged off a mild headache as he got ready for work, yet he couldn't shake a niggling sense of unease, as though a shadow had crept in behind him. Reassuring himself that it was just the power of suggestion, he headed out, convinced that the chain email was nothing but internet junk. He had no way of knowing how wrong he was. If you received an ominous chain email promising doom, would you humor it and forward it, or delete it and call its bluff? That morning, Gavin's daily commute felt off. The radio spat static on every station, fading in and out at random intervals. On the highway, he caught glimpses of movement in his rearview mirror, dark silhouettes that vanished when he glanced directly at them. Still, he blamed his fatigue and the drab weather. "Should have had an extra coffee," he muttered. At the office, things only got stranger. His computer crashed repeatedly, displaying lines of garbled text. Colleagues passed by, noticing his frustration, but none had a solution. One coworker joked, "Maybe your PC's haunted." Gavin forced a laugh, but a wave of déjà vu unsettled him. By lunch, a splitting headache pounded at his temples, and the overhead lights flickered whenever he stepped into a conference room. One flicker revealed a fleeting image of something, he couldn't be sure what, looming behind his reflection in the glass partition. Before he could react, the light stabilized, leaving him rattled and alone. He tried to focus on the chain email's threat, recalling the instructions he'd brushed off. "Forward to 10 people." The words, once laughable, now crept under his skin like an itch he couldn't scratch. Was it all in his head, or had he triggered something truly malevolent by ignoring that grim warning? By the time Gavin headed home, dusk was settling in, and a sense of dread followed him like a shadow. As he pulled into his driveway, he noticed a single crow perched on his mailbox, staring unblinking as he stepped out of his car. Its silent gaze unnerved him more than he cared to admit. Inside, his home felt different. Thick, stale air greeted him, and the lights cast odd shapes on the walls. The mild headache flared into a deep throb behind his eyes. Deciding to relax, he tried to stream a favorite show, but the television refused to power on. When he checked his phone for distractions, the screen flickered with random text. "You were warned." Fear twisted his stomach. Could someone be playing an elaborate prank? The possibility offered little comfort. The message on his phone glowed for only a moment before vanishing, leaving no trace. Too unsettled to think clearly, Gavin rushed to his laptop, intending to search for the chain email in his deleted items. The laptop's screen pulsed with static the instant it powered on, revealing twisted images, faces blurred by digital noise, eyes wide in terror. An icy sweat broke out on Gavin's forehead. Logic told him this couldn't be happening, but his heart pounded with the dawning realization that he'd unleashed something he couldn't contain. Gavin's hands trembled as he searched his email trash folder. The chain email was still there, title bold, the body text glaring at him like an accusation. He hurriedly clicked restore, heart hammering in his chest. The plan was simple: forward it, just as the instructions demanded, and break the curse he'd laughed at hours before. But every time he pressed send, his screen froze. A notification popped up. Error, cannot deliver message. Frantic, Gavin tried again and again, selecting different recipients, co-workers, old friends, even random contacts. Each time the email refused to move. It was as if an unseen force was mocking him, ensuring he could not reverse his mistake. Thunder rumbled outside, and the lights dimmed. Panic churned in Gavin's mind, imagining the final line of the email. "If you fail, the spirit will claim your soul by midnight." Silly words once. Now they felt like a ticking clock. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. Every shadow stretched in the dim light, resembling grasping hands. A strange static hiss filled his ears, as if the spirit behind this curse was drawing closer. Despite every rational impulse, Gavin found himself gasping for breath, the terror all too real. Time was running out. The storm outside intensified, lightning flashing through the windows and illuminating the house in stark, white bursts. In the brief intervals of light, Gavin saw shapes flicker across the walls, indistinct figures twisting and fading. Another crash of thunder shook the foundation, and the power blinked off, plunging the room into near-total darkness. A faint glow from his phone revealed the chain email again, as though it had opened by itself. This time the text appeared altered. "You cannot escape your fate." Fear constricted Gavin's throat. He needed a plan. Perhaps printing it and physically handing it to 10 people would break the curse? It sounded absurd, but he would try anything. Fumbling around, Gavin found a flashlight. The beam cut a narrow path through the dark corridor as he headed toward the printer in his study. Yet each step felt heavier, the house groaning under the storm's rage. Shadows moved at the edge of the flashlight's glare, and he swore he heard whispering, low, guttural, echoing voices. When Gavin finally reached the study, he discovered the printer jammed with a single page. Written in warped letters were words he'd never seen before. "Your time is done." The paper crinkled as if something pressed against it from within. Lightning flashed again, revealing an inky form behind him, tall, silent, and malevolent. Gavin's heart thundered in his chest as he realized this might be the final consequence of his careless dismissal. Staggered by fear, Gavin spun around, aiming the flashlight at the looming figure. The beam flickered, revealing only a swirl of shadows that seemed almost fluid. A suffocating chill pressed against him, cutting off his every breath. In the distance, the faint digital hum of his laptop droned. as if echoing the chain email's presence. He stumbled toward the door, but an unseen force pinned him in place. Static crackled in the air, a dissonant chorus that coalesced into one word, whispered over and over, "Forward." In that moment, Gavin understood the horrifying truth. The email's curse would not be cheated. The promise of doom for non-compliance was not an empty threat. It was unstoppable, ancient magic carried through digital threads. Just when he thought he might break free, the shadows converged around him, their darkness pouring into the corners of his vision. He felt a tug at his consciousness, as if his soul itself was being wrenched loose. The final crash of thunder roared overhead, and the swirling presence enveloped him entirely. When the storm passed, the house stood silent. The power came back on with a hum, and Gavin's phone glowed from the floor. A single unread email notification blinked on the screen. "You have received a new message." No trace of Gavin remained, save for the overturned chair and his phone's flickering light. Somewhere in the digital ether, the cursed email awaited its next recipient, ready to continue its cycle of horror. Thank you for witnessing Gavin's ill-fated dismissal of a sinister chain email. Would you have heeded the warning and forwarded it, or deleted it out of principle? Let us know in the comments. And if this eerie tale makes you think twice about jokes lurking in your spam folder, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Dare to Listen for more chilling stories that test the limits of our digital age. After all, it only takes one message to make you question the thin line between superstition and a curse waiting to strike.